How did you handle your son growing up and becoming a man? My son is 19. He's always been an incredible kid, and now he's turning into an amazing young man. He's in his second year of college, still living at home to save on costs, and he's got his head on straight. He plays in the college band, has a life plan, and wants to move out next fall to share an apartment with some friends. Honestly, he's doing everything right, and I couldn't be prouder. But, man, it's hitting me hard right now. Tomorrow, he's leaving for a few days to visit his girlfriend in another state. It's not like he hasn't gone on trips before, but this time feels different. Maybe it's because he's at that stage where the next steps, moving out, starting his own life, feel so close, and I'm realizing that I can't stop time. He's always been my best buddy, and I knew this day would come, but knowing it and feeling it are two entirely different things. He's such a good kid, you know? Even at 19, he still hugs me in public, no hesitation. He still tells me he loves me before hanging up the phone, even if he's with his friends. Male or female, it doesn't matter. It's those little things that remind me of the bond we've always had. And I can't help but think about how fast it all went. Just yesterday, it feels like we were sitting on the floor together, watching his favorite animated movies and playing with Hot Wheels. I blinked, and suddenly, he's grown, independent, making plans that don't revolve around me or this house. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled to see the man he's becoming. He's kind, ambitious, respectful, and he's carving out a life for himself just like I hoped he would. But there's this ache I can't shake. It's not that I feel like I'm losing him exactly, but more like the weight of time slipping by is pressing on me. It's a mix of pride and heartbreak. How did we get here so fast? My relationship with my dad was, well, awful. He wasn't around much, and when he wasn't exactly what you'd call a great role model. I promised myself that I'd be different, that I'd be the dad I never had, and I think I've done a decent job. But maybe that's why it hurts so much. When he talks about moving out or his big career plans, I can feel my heart breaking just a little. I know it's what he's supposed to do, it's healthy, it's natural, but there's a part of me that wishes he could stay forever. Like logically, I know that's not what's best for him, but emotionally, I'm not ready. I'm trying to figure out how to reconcile these feelings. I want to see him grow and thrive, to chase his dreams and build his own life. I want to be the supportive dad I promised myself I'd be. But I also want to hold on to these moments, the ones where he's still my boy, still here, still needing me in the ways he used to. It's this push and pull that I wasn't prepared for, and I don't know how to handle it. So, Reddit, how did you all cope with this? How do you accept that your kid is growing up and moving on without feeling like you're losing a piece of yourself? I don't want to make him feel guilty or hold him back in any way. I just want to be better at this, at letting go while still holding on to the connection we have. Any advice for a dad trying to figure it all out? Update 1 week later. Hey Reddit, it's been about a week since I wrote my post, and I wanted to give you all an update. First off, my son made it to his destination safely, which was of course a huge relief. He's been really good about keeping me updated too. He's been sending little messages and photos here and there, which honestly mean the world to me. Just yesterday, he sent me a picture of this dinner he cooked with his girlfriend. It was some kind of pasta dish that actually looked pretty impressive for a 19-year-old college kid. Along with the photo, he texted, "Dad, I miss your home-cooked meals." Let me tell you, that one simple line, it had me grinning like an idiot the rest of the evening. Knowing he's thinking about home, even while he's off building this new chapter of his life, just hits different. But at the same time, it's been tough. I'll admit it. The house feels so quiet without him around. His room, God, his room. It's like this constant reminder of him, sitting there empty. I haven't touched a thing. His bed is still unmade from the morning he left, his favorite hoodie is slung over the back of his chair, and his books are stacked on the desk, just like he left them. I keep telling myself I'm just leaving it like that because I want him to feel like he can come back whenever he needs to. But if I'm being real, I think it's more for me than for him. Every time I walk past that door, I feel this pang in my chest. It's this weird mix of pride and sadness. Pride because I know he's out there doing his thing, growing, learning, becoming his own person. sadness because it feels like one chapter of our lives is closing, and I wasn't quite ready to turn the page. And here's where I'm conflicted, Reddit. Is it healthy to keep his room exactly the way he left it? Am I holding on too tightly to something I need to let go of? Part of me feels like I should pack some of it away, make it less of a shrine and more of a guest room. But another part of me feels like that would be erasing this piece of him that still feels so close, even when he's miles away. I've been trying to keep busy, though. I've started a little project, organizing old family photos. It's something I've been meaning to do forever, and now feels like the right time. Going through those pictures has been a trip down memory lane. There are so many moments I'd forgotten about. His first soccer game, Halloween costumes, his awkward middle school haircut. He still pretends that phase didn't happen. I guess what I'm realizing is that parenting doesn't really end, does it? It just changes. And while that's comforting in a way, it's also scary because it means I have to figure out what this new version of dad looks like. I've been thinking a lot about the advice some of you gave me in the comments last time, about embracing this transition as a chance to grow myself. Easier said than done, but I'm trying. I'm even considering picking up a new hobby, maybe woodworking or something hands-on, something to fill the time and give me a sense of purpose outside of just being dad. But no matter what I do, there's this underlying question I keep coming back to. How do you balance letting your kid go while still holding on to the bond you share? I don't want to smother him or make him feel like he can't fly. But I also don't want to lose this closeness we have. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I know there are bigger changes ahead. Next fall, when he moves out for good, will probably be another emotional roller coaster. But today, I'm just focusing on being grateful. Grateful that he's safe, that he's happy, that he's still texting his old man about homemade meals. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Thanks for listening. And as always, I'm open to any advice or stories from parents who've been through this. How do you handle the empty room, the quiet house, the new normal? I'd love to hear how you made it through and found your footing. Until next time, Reddit. Update 2, 1 month later. Hey Reddit, I'm back with another update. It's been about a month since my first post, and I'm happy to say things are looking up. Well, mostly. My son came home yesterday for a quick visit to grab some of his things. It was just for the day, but man, it felt good to have him around. When he walked through the door, I could tell immediately that something had changed. He looked happy, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a while, like he was finally settling into this new phase of his life. Of course, I asked him the typical dad question, "So, how's everything going?" And he just smiled and said, "It's going great, Dad, but I still miss home. I think I'll come back for dinner sometimes, if that's okay." If that's okay? Are you kidding me? I'd cook him dinner every single night if it meant seeing him more often. But I just nodded and played it cool, saying, "You're always welcome here, son. You don't even have to ask." That evening, I decided to make his favorite dish, spaghetti and meatballs. Nothing fancy, but it's been his go-to comfort food since he was a kid. As we sat down to eat, it hit me just how much I missed moments like this. The casual conversation, the jokes that only we find funny, the little updates on his life that remind me he's still the same kid I've always known, even if he's growing up. We talked for hours about school, his band, his girlfriend, even random stuff like how he's learning to cook more than just ramen noodles. At one point, he mentioned a funny story about getting lost on the way to a concert with his friends, and we both laughed so hard we were practically crying. It felt like catching up with an old friend, comfortable, familiar, and surprisingly reassuring. And in that moment, I realized something important. Maybe this whole letting go thing doesn't mean losing him. Maybe it's just about the relationship evolving into something new. He's not a little boy anymore, and I'm not the center of his world. But that's okay, because the bond we share, that's still there, and it's strong. Don't get me wrong, the quiet house still gets to me sometimes. There are days when I catch myself lingering in his room, looking at the little details he left behind, like the ticket stubs from a concert he went to, or the old, worn-out guitar he used to practice on. It's bittersweet for sure, but I'm learning to focus more on the sweetness than the bitter. I'm also trying to keep myself busy. The photo project I mentioned in my last update has been coming along nicely. It's been a great way to reminisce without feeling too stuck in the past. And I even took some advice from you all and started a new hobby, woodworking. I'm still a total beginner, but there's something therapeutic about working with my hands. I've already made a small coffee table, and I'm thinking about tackling a bookshelf next. But back to my son. This visit, short as it was, gave me so much hope. He's happy, he's thriving, and he still wants to come home to see me. That last part means everything. It's like a reassurance that no matter how far he goes or how independent he becomes, he still values this connection we have. Before he left, he hugged me, still in public, no less, and said, "Thanks for dinner, Dad. I'll text you when I get back." And sure enough, an hour after he left, my phone buzzed. It was a picture of the road ahead of him, captioned, "Made it back safe. Love you, Dad." That one message was all I needed to know we're going to be okay. I'm not losing him. I'm just watching him spread his wings, and I get to cheer him on from the sidelines. So yeah, Reddit, I think I'm starting to figure this out. It's not easy, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't still get emotional sometimes. But I'm learning to embrace the changes, one step at a time. And to all the parents out there who've been through this, or are going through it now, thank you for sharing your stories and advice. It's been a huge help knowing I'm not alone in this. If you've got any more tips on how to navigate this transition, I'm all ears. For now, I'll keep making spaghetti, building coffee tables, and enjoying every text, call, or visit my son throws my way. Life's changing, but maybe that's not such a bad thing after all. Update 3 months later. Hey Reddit, it's been 3 months since my first post, and I've got another update to share. This one feels like a turning point, not just for my son, but for me as well. This past weekend, my son invited me over to check out his new place. He and his friends finally moved into the apartment they'd been planning for months. I was a little nervous, partly because it felt like another reminder that he's really out there, building a life on his own, and partly because I wasn't sure what I'd find. Let's just say my expectations for a college guy apartment weren't exactly high. But when I walked in, I was genuinely surprised. The place was nice. Like really nice. His room was neat and thoughtfully decorated. Nothing fancy, but it had a warm, lived-in vibe. What really caught my eye, though, was the desk by the window. On it was a framed photo of our family from a trip we took years ago. I pointed to it and said, "Didn't expect to see that here." He smiled and replied, "I kept it to remind me of home. It makes me feel grounded." That one line hit me harder than I expected. Here he was, carving out his own space in the world, but still keeping a piece of us with him. It was such a simple gesture, but it said so much about the person he's becoming. We spent the afternoon hanging out and he gave me the full tour. He showed me the living room where they'd put together a mishmash of secondhand furniture that somehow worked. He was especially proud of the tiny kitchen, where he's apparently been experimenting with cooking, though he admitted he's burned more than his fair share of meals. We ended up grabbing coffee at a nearby cafe, and for the first time in a while, I didn't feel the weight of worry or sadness. Instead, I just felt proud. Proud of how he's handled this transition, how he's made a home for himself, and how he's navigating adulthood with so much more grace than I ever did at his age. On the drive home, I found myself reflecting on everything that's happened over the past few months. I'll be honest, letting go hasn't been easy. There were days when the quiet house felt unbearable, when I caught myself dwelling on memories of him as a little boy. But this visit helped me see things differently. Instead of focusing on what I'm losing, I'm starting to appreciate what I'm gaining. Our relationship is changing, yes, but it's evolving into something deeper. He doesn't need me in the same ways he used to, but he still values me. He still invites me into his life, and that means the world to me. This shift in perspective hasn't happened overnight. It's taken a lot of effort, a lot of introspection, and honestly, a lot of support from this community. Reading your comments, hearing your stories, and knowing I'm not alone in this has made all the difference. I've also been making a conscious effort to focus on myself. The woodworking hobby I mentioned before, it's become a real passion. I recently finished a bookshelf and am working on a dining table next. It's been such a great outlet, not just for filling time, but for channeling some of the emotions I've been processing. And while I've been finding new ways to grow, my son has been teaching me something too. That letting go doesn't mean severing ties. It means trusting the foundation you've built And knowing that love doesn't fade just because circumstances change. He's promised to come home for dinner next week, and we've already made plans to cook together. He's been bragging about a pasta recipe he's perfected, so I'm looking forward to seeing if it lives up to the hype. I know there will still be hard moments. There will be times when I miss having him around every day, when I wish we could go back to the simpler days of watching cartoons and playing with Hot Wheels. But I'm learning to lean into the present, to cherish the moments we do share, and to celebrate the man he's becoming. So that's where things stand now. I've gone from feeling like I was losing my son to realizing that I'm gaining something even better. A lifelong connection with someone I'm proud to call my kid. Update 4, 6 months later. It's been half a year since I first shared my thoughts here, and I wanted to check in with an update. Before I dive in, I just want to thank everyone who's been following along, offering advice, or even just lending an ear. Your support has meant more to me than I can put into words. Yesterday, something unexpected happened. My son came home unannounced. He'd been keeping busy with school, work, and his band, so I hadn't seen him in a little while. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, I couldn't help but smile. He had this excited energy about him and immediately said, "Dad, get dressed. I've got tickets to our show tonight and you're coming with me." Now, to give you some context, I've always known he was passionate about music, but I hadn't had the chance to see him perform live since he joined this new band. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, but how could I say no? So I threw on a jacket, and we headed out to get. The venue wasn't huge, one of those cozy places with a small stage and an intimate crowd, but it had so much charm. As we walked in, I saw the pride in his face, like this was his world, and he was inviting me to be a part of it. When his band started playing, I was blown away. Not just by the music itself, which was honestly fantastic, but by how confident and alive he looked up there. He was completely in his element, leading the crowd, connecting with his bandmates, and pouring his heart into every note. Watching him up there, I had one of those proud dad moments where you feel like your chest might burst. And it wasn't just pride, it was also this deep sense of awe. Here was my kid, the same one who used to practice guitar in his room until I'd beg him to turn it down, now commanding a stage like he was born to do it. It was one of those moments where you realize just how far they've come, not just as your child, but as their own person. After the show, we grabbed a late-night bite to eat at this little diner near the venue. It felt like old times, just the two of us, joking around, swapping stories, and catching up. At one point, he looked at me and said something that completely caught me off guard. "Dad, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for you." I don't think I have ever been more moved. I played it off with a simple, "I'm proud of you, son." But truthfully, those words stayed with me the entire drive home. It made me realize that no matter how much life changes, no matter how much distance or time separates us, the bond we share is unshakable. That night, after I got home, I sat in his old room for a while. It's still mostly the same. His books, posters, and little mementos from his childhood. But it doesn't feel empty anymore. Instead, it feels like a testament to the foundation we've built. This whole experience has taught me something important about parenting. The connection you have with your child doesn't disappear when they grow up. It evolves. It becomes something deeper, something that reflects all the years of love, effort, and shared moments. I'm also starting to see how much I've grown through this journey. A year ago, I was dreading the idea of him leaving the house. I was scared of what it would mean for our relationship and for my own identity as a dad. But now I'm learning to embrace this new chapter. Instead of seeing his independence as a loss, I'm seeing it as a win for both of us. Of course, it's not all easy. There are still moments when I miss having him around every day. But I've learned to fill that space with things that bring me joy. My woodworking projects are coming along great. I recently finished a dining table that I'm actually really proud of, and I've been spending more time reconnecting with old friends and even trying new things like hiking. One thing's for sure, I've stopped worrying about losing him. If anything, I feel like we're closer now than we've ever been. He calls me at least once a week to tell me about his classes or a new song he's working on. And every time we talk, I'm reminded that being a parent isn't about holding on too tightly. It's about letting go with love and trust. So where do we go from here? I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. I'll keep showing up. For him, for myself, and for this new version of our relationship. And who knows? Maybe I'll even make it to more of his shows in the future. Thanks again, Reddit, for being here through it all. Your stories, advice, and encouragement have been such a lifeline for me. If any of you are going through something similar, I'd love to hear how you're navigating it. Let's keep learning from each other. Until next time, take care.